Hi everyone! In this video I want to have a very simple cartoon to talk about why do we study what we study in genetics. And the major point I want to make here is that the things we study in genetics are basically just the simplest necessary problems that need to be solved to be alive. Okay, so let's imagine our simplest possible organism. Okay, so what does this organism need to do just to be alive? Well, one thing it needs to know is to know how to copy itself. Another thing that it needs to know is it needs to have machines. So, for instance, it needs to have machines that can interact with the outside environment so that it can gather food and other nutrients and molecules that it needs, as well as to get rid of stuff. Perhaps it needs some way to get around, some way to move through the environment. It needs all kinds of things, right? And many things we could imagine. It also needs instructions on how to make those things, right? Because if it's going to eventually divide, it needs for all the descendant cells to also have the instructions so it can continue to make the proteins, not just that it can make them once. So that when it divides, that the new cell will also have a set of instructions, and it can use those instructions to make the machines that it needs. Well, in fact, when the cell divides, some of the machines will go on both sides, so we'll copy the instructions and then divide with one set of instructions and some of the machines going to each descendant cell. And then over time, the instructions can be used to make more machines since we have the instructions. Okay, so then if we think about what we need a copier. And if we need a copier, then that means we need another set of instructions because the copier is also a machine. So we need a set of instructions for how to make the copier. And then we need a factory to make machines, right? So the copier is just going to copy instructions, while the factory is going to make the machines. And so now we need a set of instructions on how to make a factory. Okay, so the copier is going to go through, and for each set of instructions, it's going to make a second copy. Now it's copying the red instructions, the blue instructions, and the yellow instructions. So that when we divide, we have copiers and factories and instructions in both descendant cells. And again, we can now use the instructions to make more of the machines. So that's all I wanted to go through, but the point here is that this basic, unavoidable set of problems that the cell needs to solve, well, in this case, the gene is an instruction, which is a piece of DNA, so a set of instructions is a gene. The machines are proteins, or sometimes they're RNAs, or combination thereof. And copying is DNA replication. That's what we call it when we replicate or duplicate our DNA. And the copier we call DNA polymerase. And finally, making machines is what we call expressing the gene. This is sort of a funny word, expressing. In genetics, we use expression to mean just taking a set of instructions, taking a gene, and making an RNA copy of that and using that RNA to make proteins that are encoded by the DNA. So this is what we mean by gene expression. So making machines is building proteins off of the instructions in genes. So making machines we call gene expression. And finally, the transcription machinery is RNA polymerase. The translation machinery is ribosomes. And so together they are kind of the factory here. So the take home is just that the genetics is the study of the most basic stuff that's necessary for life, that the machines basically are proteins, that the instructions basically are DNA, and then we have copying, the copier, and the machine factory.